Now we're going on to Brexit, final topic. And the first question is, would you maintain free movement of people? Joe, Labour sometimes talk about free movement of labour in the same conversation. What do you make of this?
Well, I'll be the first to admit that our policy on Brexit is at sometimes vague.
Absent.
So on the specific point on immigration, I'm a son of an immigrant who works in the NHS. You're more likely to be treated by an immigrant in the NHS than you are to be waiting in the queue behind them in a hospital. Immigration is clearly fantastic for this country. The Tory idea to slash immigration by 75% to get it below 100,000 is just economic suicide. It's a very stupid thing to do. When it comes to the relationship between how close we are to Europe and free movement, I think with Brexit we need to remain as close as possible as we can to the European Union. We need to minimise the economic damage that Brexit is going to cause. I think widely on immigration you need a much better tone on it. Sadiq Khan's London is Open campaign is a very good example of this. We really need to reduce the toxicity within the debate around immigration. On free movement itself, if the economic relationship with Europe is a completely separate issue, I don't know whether you necessarily need complete full free movement, but certainly keep immigration levels similar to what they are at the moment, because it's massively beneficial for this country. There's maybe some elements of immigrants who come here and just cannot find any work from the European Union. Perhaps there's a case to be made there. We also need to train up some of our own staff a lot better so we don't need to import so many immigrants. But broadly speaking, immigration is fantastic for this country and shouldn't be slashed.
Ben?
I think it's very rich from Labour to give lectures on economic suicide, but when it comes to free movement of people, I think anyone who watched the referendum unfold, it's pretty obvious that as the UK, people who voted to leave wanted to take back control of their laws, their borders and their money. And leaving the European Union means you leave the single market, you leave the customs union, and as a fact of that, you end free movement of people. Now I voted Remain, but Parliament gave people the right to have their say. People had their say, and anyone who watched the referendum unfold saw the mantra of take back control was dominant throughout the referendum campaign, and people voted to end free movement of people into this country.
Hugo, where do the Free Market Association stand on you on this?
If three or more or any number of people decide to band together and put a fence around their property, then they are entitled to do so. The question here is about whether a nation is such a group, and can we speak of the population of the UK as a group of people who decided democratically that they're going to now separate from the world. There are many perspectives on that. I represent the most diverse grouping, perhaps. We don't have a popular program. We don't have a single solution to everything. My perspective would be socialism, I think, has got two logical conclusions. One is National Socialism, the other one is communism. I shall leave communism now for a moment. National Socialism is when wealth is distributed within a group like a nation. It is what happens when a socialist nation gets an influx of people who come and leech on this system that we have set up for ourselves to benefit from. So I have nothing against the free movement of people, except, of course, I think we can't have absolute immigration and a very generous welfare state. Those are things that are contradictory. We can't have both. I'd be more in favour of loosening travel between the UK and the EU, certainly, and lowering and cutting the welfare state. I think that would be very beneficial. So I am not against the free movement of people, but then that is my private opinion. What I would do as the government is a totally different option, but the free market association is most certainly not going to stand near the government in any due time.
Jay?
I think it's important when we think about this to take a bit of a historical perspective and think about actually what Britain's position has been in shaping a really unequal world where people feel they want to, come and work in different places and different places offer different opportunities. I don't think it's right, given our history of empire and the responsibilities that Britain has for shaping the way the world is today, to say that we have developed this country which appears to lots of people to be a very appealing place to live on the back of an empire, and then to cut off what we have established on the back of that from the people who actually allow us to do it. I think that raises some serious moral issues. So the Green Party definitely believes in free movement of people.
Felicity?
I actually partially agree with Joe. I think that personally for me, I also voted Remain. For me, free movement was more than a fair price to pay for the advantages of being in the EU. But if we leave the EU, I don't see why we wouldn't take back whatever control we can do feasibly while maintaining the level of immigration we need for our economy and being more fair to our Commonwealth citizens. When a lot of countries were given their independence, their citizens were told they'd be able to come back to the UK whenever they wanted and that they would remain British citizens. That lasted about 10 years, and then we said no. And I think that a more fair settlement would probably include more immigration from the Commonwealth. The only point I would say though is that we do have an ageing population. Our fertility rate is 1.8, which is below replacement, and we do need immigration to maintain demographics of the country which allow us to maintain our commitments. It goes back to pensions as well, right at the beginning of the debate. We can't go the way that some countries like Italy and Europe are going, where their populations are going to decrease and they are going to have commitments they cannot fulfil. We need immigration. I don't think it necessarily has to come through free movement with the EU, and I actually don't necessarily think that is most fair.
I don't think anybody wants zero net migration, as you say, it's ridiculous. But the idea of free movement of people is incompatible with the result of the referendum. And free movement of people, it's radical, it's arguably a racist immigration policy, where 500 million predominantly white Europeans are allowed to come in, but people from the rest of the world are discriminated against and have to come in on a different basis. Post-Brexit, when the UK takes back control of the borders, we can have a genuinely fair and non-discriminatory immigration policy where we can have immigration based on people's skills, people's family ties, or whatever we want. We don't discriminate on where people come from.
Seconded. If that's how you phrase it, that's a totally different
Can I make
issue.
one more point? I think if people have voted for Brexit out of the sphere of immigration, migration,
Take back control of a lot of money involved.
in terms of a long-term perspective, I think we need to be worried about the environment, because if climate change continues as it is going, then there's going to be a huge global upheaval, and I think migration will become one of the central questions.
Does anyone want to... Yes, back.
Yeah, I don't know about Ben, but the narrative I remember from the referendum campaign was not, we need to leave the customs union, deregulate our food market and buy chlorine chicken from Donald Trump. It was, we need to have £50 million a week from the NHS. So if someone is in favour of the will of the people, when is that 350 million a week going to come in?
We haven't left yet.
So is it
really think about
policy in 2 years' time?
Yes, gentleman there.
Yeah, just while we're on the subject of leaving the customs union and leaving the freedom of movement behind, how do we respond to the potential Pandora's box of problems we're going to open up on the Irish border? How would each of the panellists say to deal with that?
Joe, would you like to start?
I'd stay in the customs union. I mean, I can't see any other way of solving it, to be honest. The government keeps talking about these kind of magical high-tech solutions that don't appear to really exist. And then on the meeting in December Theresa May had, they just fudged the issue and kicked it into the long grass. It's still there. I think Stephen Bush has written on this quite well, and he says stay in the customs union, and I think that's probably the best thing to do.
I probably agree with Joe. I think the problem with putting, I think some of the suggestions have been we'd have checkpoints on the border, but we wouldn't really care about them. Sad truth, there's still an average of 1 terrorist attack a month in Northern Ireland. The Troubles have ended, but that was when the UK's review of terrorism legislation spoke last year, that's what he said. But if we put people on the border, I think the central UK government has to acknowledge that some of them, over a period of time, will get killed. I think that decision makers have to weigh that in. And I don't know, I just feel like it was not considered at all in the campaign.
Yeah.
It really, I feel like the can got kicked down the road after the first round of negotiations. The EU in their draft leaving proposal has said that we have to keep Northern Ireland in the customs union, and I don't know how we can have an alternative to that, really.
Does anybody disagree with free movement of people that would like to chip in here? Anybody? No? Ben, would you like to come back on what's been said at the Irish border?
Well, first of all, nothing is agreed until everything is agreed with the Irish border. But we have a phase 1 agreement on the Irish border. We will make sure that trade can carry on in the 7 areas identified under the Good Friday Agreement, I believe. And we are in a process of negotiation with the European Union, and nobody wants a hard border at the Irish border. And if nobody wants a hard border at the Irish border, there will be no hard border.
That's not the point, because other things can be up for negotiation. The amount of money we pay to leave can be negotiated at the last minute just by getting the two numbers closer together. The Irish border is a big elephant in the room. There is no easy solution. You can't just negotiate away the problem with the Irish border. What is the actual solution from the Tories' perspective?
Well, might surprise you, I don't sit in the cabinet. I don't know what the negotiation position is.
Well, what would your proposed actual solution be? Rather than, saying negotiations are ongoing and blah, 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 what would you want out of those negotiations?
And my point would perhaps be that people have said we don't want a hard border on the Northern Irish border, but what is a soft border? How soft is a soft border? Do you still have to show your passport? I don't feel like people have been given any assurances about what's happening, and we're leaving supposedly in a year next month. This is a massive issue that is just nobody knows. And I don't expect you to know because of that, because I don't think anyone knows.
But it highlights one of the key problems that seems to keep coming up, which is that when the Brexit debate was going on, these issues weren't raised, and I mean, the Green Party is in favour of once an agreement is decided that we'll have another vote, and I think that is really what needs to happen when you realise that we weren't given the arguments, these issues weren't discussed, and people weren't given accurate or truthful debate.
I think it's quite condescending to say that 17.4 million people didn't know what they were voting for.
I think I struggle to weigh up these issues. You don't know what's happening with the border of Northern Ireland. The cabinet don't.
No, we'll go to the audience. Dan, did you want to say something?
Yeah. So obviously, like Ben said, nobody wants a hard border because people fought and died for the Good Friday Agreement on both sides. There are ways around it where you don't have to have a border, especially when it comes to things like trade. There are electronic systems that have been batted around. Like we say, obviously, we don't know, because if we start playing our hand straight away and sharing information with students about our negotiation, then we give away a huge amount. But if we end up saying the only way to do this is to stay in the customs union, so let's take ourselves out of the EU where we have a say in how this is run, but let's keep ourselves in it. So now we get part of the package where we are dictated to by the EU without having any form of input into it. We end up coming out worse off.
I do get that. There are some interim agreements, and the EU is actually quite cooperative with this. Then the issue is that now we have the DUP in government. So what the EU...
The DUP is not in government. The DUP is a competence supply
agreement. They did reject the Northern Ireland deal in the first phase.
The first deal was a bad deal,
But again, what the EU has offered is that Northern Ireland would stay in the customs union. I don't know what that would mean we pay. I'm sure that we can say we're trying to avoid conflict here, and we think it should be reduced because this is best for everyone. But obviously the unionists don't like that. They want the same deal as the rest of Britain. That is their perspective, and I can't see them ever moving on it. And perhaps in a way it's a good thing they're in government, because you could argue it's not good for them to be rode roughshod over on that. But it's a very hard thing to settle, because that is, you either have the whole of the UK stays in, we end up with a pretty bad deal. Northern Ireland stays in, unionists are very upset. Currently, in the current form of government, the exit bill couldn't pass if Northern Ireland stays in and the rest of the UK doesn't, or the whole of the UK leaves and we have to have some form of order. I do think it is more complicated.
Okay, we'll move on to the next question.